It is Mock Draft Monday here on HQ Spotlight as we tip off finals week in the NBA. Kyle Boone with a brand new mock draft as we near the 3-week mark. 3 weeks from Wednesday is the first round of the NBA draft. 23 days away at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The Nets with the most picks in the first round. They have 4, but it's the Mavs, as you know, that won that draft lottery and will lead things off. I'm Chris Hassel, joined by Kyle Boone, who has his mock with him, and Adam Finkelstein is joining as well. And it's the Mavs taking Cooper Flagg at number 1. Kyle, you can't even bet on this pick this season because it is a formality.
Yeah, that's right. The Dallas Mavericks are going to select Cooper Flagg. That was always going to happen as soon as the Dallas Mavericks won the draft lottery, or whoever won the draft lottery. Cooper Flagg's the best prospect in this class. He was the best player in college basketball last season, and many believe that he is a future all-star, a Hall of Fame caliber talent, really good on both ends of the floor. Defensively, he led a Duke team that won 35 games, was top 5 in efficiency on both ends of the floor. He can pass it, he can shoot it, he can be a playmaker, and there are so many things to like about Cooper Flagg. He will be the number 1 pick in just a couple weeks.
But who does he remind you of, Boone? I started the season with the Andre Kirilenko comp because at 6'9", he's able to dominate the game defensively, in particularly off the ball, and also versatile off the ball, on the ball that is. But I think he's outgrown that comp on the offensive end. So that's right, I'm going full-fledged Scottie Pippen here because of the versatility in his game. And I think the only question really remaining about Cooper, given the gains he showed with his shooting and his self-creation this year at Duke, is this. Is he an alpha for an NBA championship caliber team? That is something we still do not know. That's why I'm going with Scottie Pippen, because I think he's good enough offensively to carry a number of teams. If and when he becomes quite good enough to be the focal point of an NBA championship caliber team, his game and his stock will go to entirely new levels.
Now, that's a big-time jump. Kirilenko, 1-time All-Star. Scottie Pippen, a 7-time All-Star, and he's got 6 of those rings with Michael Jordan as well. Spurs have a bunch of rings. They're looking to build toward another with Wemby and a couple of lottery picks. Who do you have them taking at number 2, Kyle?
It's going to be Dylan Harper from Rutgers, and the Spurs have 2 lottery picks here at number 2 and number 14. You know, there's some talk that maybe the Spurs package up some of these picks and go after, a Giannis in this offseason. But, assuming that they stick and pick, and I do believe that they do stick and pick, Dylan Harper is the number 2 prospect in this class pretty clearly. For me, he averaged 19.4 points per game last season as a true freshman at Rutgers. He's the son of a former NBA player in Ron Harper, can play both on and off the ball. I like his versatility. I believe in his shot. And this is a guy who I think you can build around long-term in San Antonio, around, of course, 7'4" Victor Wembanyama.
So almost 6'9" wingspan, almost 6'6" in shoes on, kind of a jumbo creator. My comp is a left-handed Cade Cunningham. Like Cunningham, he's got some questions about the consistency of his jumper. He's not an elite vertical athlete, not a total knockdown jumper, but he's got terrific positional size. He's got great instincts for the game. So I think the Cunningham trajectory is going to be a really important one for him to follow. Now, another similarity here. Durability, really important to Cade Cunningham. We just saw him play his healthiest season in 4 NBA tries so far, and what happened? He made NBA All-Third Team. Dylan Harper has got to prove that he has the durability to live up to his All-Star potential as well. But I think in terms of player archetypes, think about someone like Cade Cunningham.
And a pedigree to live up to as well with his father, Ron. Not the only son of a former NBA great who could go in the lottery here. Going to number 3, it's the Philadelphia 76ers. Who all might Philly consider here at 3, Kyle?
Yeah, Chris, I think this one is pretty open still at number 3. I have them selecting Ace Bailey from Rutgers. He's a 6'7" shot maker who can play on and off the ball. I think they will consider Trey Johnson from Texas. I think they will consider Con Knipple from Duke, and I think even VJ Edgecombe should be in the mix here. But Bailey, who's 6'7", shot 35% on threes last season at Rutgers. I think the size, the scoring, and just the overall versatility in his game is why a lot of people believe that he is the clear number 3 in this class, and a lot of people believe that the drop-off comes after Bailey. So, maybe the fit is a little bit questionable with Bailey in Philadelphia. There's some concerns in terms of his ceiling versus floor. I think he has some real bust potential, but I think at number 3, Philly just has to take the chance and hope that he works out in the NBA.
And from a comp perspective, fans should think about somebody like Michael Porter, who's got terrific positional size, athleticism, and shot-making ability. And yes, Michael Porter had an abysmal assist rate and an equally bad assist-to-turnover ratio in college. Those are the concerns about Ace Bailey, as well as the fact that he just doesn't get to the rim in the half court quite as much as you would expect for such a dynamic athlete. And yes, that was also true for Michael Porter Jr.
So you have the Sixers, Spurs, and Mavs occupying those top 3 spots. And now you get to the Hornets at 4, a team that has just been bad for a long time. It's going on 10 years now since they even made the playoffs. Who, Kyle, might fit best with the 2 pieces they do have in LaMelo and Brandon Miller?
Yeah, I have them selecting VJ Edgecombe from Baylor here. I think they could consider Con Knipple if Knipple is still on the board. But Edgecombe, just the combination of his athleticism, his size, and his two-way versatility, I think it is very appealing for a Charlotte team that has some, to be clear, some very exciting young pieces. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, I think are guys that you can still build around. And Edgecombe, he can play both on and off the ball, shot 34% from three-point range last season. There is some potential here for him at 6'4" defensively. I think he would fit very nicely around what the Hornets have already built in Charlotte.
So my comp for Edgecombe is Victor Oladipo, someone who was known for his athleticism, competitiveness, and work ethic, but had to really develop his guard skills because he was more of an undersized wing coming up the ranks. You could say the same for Edgecombe. He made strides this year with both his shooting and overall guard skills at Baylor, but that's a process that's going to need to continue in the next few years in the NBA. Victor Oladipo gives him a template to follow that could lead to an all-star type upside, which some people believe Edgecombe has.
There's a chance that every single lottery pick is a one-and-done freshman. 13 of our top 14 players are one-and-done freshmen in this draft, and nobody scored more among those freshmen than Trey Johnson, Kyle, who you have going to the Jazz at 5.
Yeah, and I think this would be great value here for Trey Johnson, someone who I think could realistically be off the board at number 3. Getting him at number 5, I think, would be a steal for the Utah Jazz. Averaged almost 20 points per game, as you mentioned, led all freshmen at the Division I level in scoring. He made more threes at the Division I level among freshmen than anyone else in the sport. And this is a guy who shot nearly 40% from three-point range this last season. He's obviously a great scorer, a playmaker, and someone who I think had some underrated versatility as well. The assists, the playmaking, he is an offensive weapon. He is not just a shooter. There's a lot to like here with Trey Johnson. I think Utah could get a really quality piece in this draft at number 5 in Trey Johnson.
So Trey Johnson is going to remind people of Cam Johnson, a tough shot maker and volume scorer. Obviously, Cam Thomas, pardon me. Obviously, Cam Thomas stars now for the Brooklyn Nets. The question about Thomas, not only coming into the league, but even going into his freshman season at LSU, was could he score and simultaneously impact winning? That was also the question about Trey Johnson. I thought he started to answer that with his efficiency and the growth we saw from him this year as a passer. If he can continue on with those developments, I think he has a chance to outgrow that Cam Thomas archetype.
This entire mock from Kyle Boone was just posted today at CBSSports.com. You can check it out. Full article and explanation for every pick, including the Wizards at number 6, taking someone, Kyle, who you say has worrying red flags, but that might not hinder a team from taking him this high. Who is it and why?
Yeah, it's Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. This is a guy who I think if you're starting and making a list of boomer bust prospects in this class, Fears has to lead the list. I think the floor is very low for him, but the all-time potential for him to be an all-star, someone who can really transition and take a franchise to a new level is absolutely there. You know, he was 17.1 points per game last season as a true freshman at Oklahoma. High usage rate. There's some questions about his shot below 30% last season, some questions about his defense, but fears, I think if he hits in a big way, he could completely revolutionize Washington in that rebuild with the Wizards.
All right, we move to the New Orleans Pelicans at number 7, and it's the best pure shooter in this draft, Con Kneppel. Who would you compare him to, Fink?
Well, I think there's a couple different guys and archetypes you could go with, but Corey Kispert is the one that keeps coming up, but I'm going to give you an even better one. Austin Reeves at the Lakers. I mean, you talk about the on-off ball versatility, the shot making, the ability to play both with and without the ball in his hands, and defy some conventional norms about the type of athleticism you need to thrive in the NBA. Austin Reeves just averaged about 20 points per game, and there is a lot of optimism about what Con Kneppel can be at the next level just because of that, because he's shown glimpses of being able to be a primary, maybe even for a second unit, but simultaneously he can play off guys like Cooper Flagg, and so he's going to be able to play off other more dynamic scorers in the NBA.
NBA Draft is in Brooklyn at the home of the Nets. Barclays Center, they have a draft high 4 first-round picks, beginning with the 8th overall pick. Kyle, who do you have them taken?
Yeah, they're going to select Kasparas Jakučionis here from Illinois and Brooklyn. As you mentioned, 4 first-round picks in this year's draft. They can completely remake their roster, and Jakučionis, I think, can help do that. Averaged 15 points per game last season at Illinois as a true freshman. And this is a guy who's a lead guard with great size, I think shooting potential, and really skilled. Someone who can be a playmaker, a facilitator, can play a number of different roles in your backcourt. I really like the idea of Jakučionis with the Nets. I think this makes for a great fit, great value at number 8.
The problem with KJ is that people are banking on the shooting in the field, but he shot a relatively low percentage and had a high turnover rate. So I'm starting to wonder if he's maybe better as a secondary guy. Think about somebody like Pods with the Golden State Warriors, who might not be the first domino in your offense, but is someone who thrives if he can play off of a primary option who can get the defense scrambling. He can then make quick decisions with the basketball. That's an archetype that I'm not sure people are considering a whole lot of, but I wonder if it might be the best fit for someone like Kasparas.
Nets also have the 19th pick, the 26th and 27th picks. We have no 4s or 5s yet. All point guards, shooting guards, and small forwards, and all starting with Cooper Flagg to the Mavs at number 1. When we come back, which center goes first? Is it Malawach or Queen? And where does Jason Richardson's son, Jace, end up? We'll finish the lottery on the other side. With the NBA Draft about 3 weeks away, we're going through Kyle Boone's mock, and we're going to finish up the lottery here, beginning at number 9 with the Toronto Raptors. Kyle, it's Kaman Malawach, who you talked to at the Combine. How long has he been playing basketball? Just a handful of years?
Yeah, that's right. I saw him at the Combine. I asked him, when did you start getting into basketball? He couldn't remember, said 13 or 14. This is a guy who actually grew up obsessed with soccer. He loved playing soccer, thought he would try and pursue a career in soccer. And someone saw him playing soccer and said, nah, you're playing basketball. And he's 7'2". He's got a 7'6" wingspan. And, you know, just the athleticism, the mobility that he has as his size, I think is really exciting as someone who can be a center at the NBA level, a lob threat, a shot blocker, and he was a really talented lob finisher last season at Duke, playing alongside Cooper Flagg. Toronto likes these guys, the raw talents who have a lot of athleticism and size and length, and checks a lot of boxes here for the Toronto Raptors at number 9.
So there's a lot of different comps you could go with here when you think about rim running, shot blocking, lob threats. But the biggest lob threat was DeAndre Jordan, and I actually think that is going to be Kaman Malawach's biggest weapon as well. He has a 9'8" standing reach. He was Cooper Flagg's favorite lob target. This guy's absolutely massive, just like DeAndre Jordan. And also like DeAndre Jordan, he He's got to keep polishing up on that shot blocking to make it more than just theoretical.
Now, Jordan was an NBA All-First Teamer in 2016, a two-time defensive first team, 15 and 16. Let's go to the 10th pick. It's the Rockets. Kyle has him going with Colin Murray-Boyles. Give us a comp or two for him, Fink.
So I don't have a great one here, but think a little bit like Paul Millsap, someone who came into the NBA known for his rebounding, which is what Murray-Boyles is, and then gradually developed his shooting, which is what Murray-Boyles is going to have to do. Then sprinkle in a little bit of Trace Jackson-Davis because he's a lefty who can play out of short rolls, and you got a little bit of an idea of what people like about Colin Murray-Boyles as an undersized big who's massively long, really strong, and very, very smart.
Rockets were the 2 seed last season, lost in that first round in 7 games to the Golden State Warriors. At 11, it's a player that I've seen just in the last week or two go anywhere from here at 11 to all the way into the mid-20s. Kyle, Yegor Demon to the Blazers here. Why?
Yeah, the wide range of draft outcomes here for Demon. I tend to think he will be on the higher side here because he is the best passer in this draft. At 6'8", his ability to see over defenses and really anticipate the way that defenses play, I think is a special gift that he has in this draft. There are some questions, obviously, about his shot. Shot 27% from three-point range last season. I think mechanically, and Fink could speak to this a little bit, I think there are some questions about projecting that to the next level. Defensively, BYU played a lot of zone defense. It's kind of hard to scout him within the context of BYU's system last year, but I think the foundation of his game, a great passer who can be a playmaker at the next level, someone I would want to bet on at number 11, I think would make sense for the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah, I agree that the shooting is a question mark. I think the bigger question mark, though, is the foot speed on the defensive end. Yegor Demon is what Kyle said. He's the best passer in this draft, but he's also got really good positional size. Some people say he's going to be a big point guard. I think he's going to be a facilitating forward just like this guy, Kyle Anderson. Similar questions, similar strengths, and an archetype to follow as a great connector in the league.
All right, the Chicago Bulls are up at 12, and it's Derek Queen out of Maryland. Kyle says he's a perfect match of fit and need for the Bulls. And Fink, you have him compared to a guy who's only 22 and just made his first All-Star team this year.
Yeah, Alperen Sengun, and to be honest with you, I think this is a relatively easy comp because like Sengun, Derek Queen is not an especially good athlete, and although he's highly skilled, he's not really a floor spacer yet. He's got terrific hands, he can really dribble the ball at his size, and he can facilitate with his passing ability. That means you can play through him at times, whether it's in the post, whether it's at the high post or the elbows. You can put him in various types of short roll actions. He can open up your playbook just like Alperen Sengun can do for the Houston Rockets.
You got the Atlanta Hawks, who are going to have 2 of the next 10 picks here. They got 13 and they have 22. And a son of a former NBA player, Jason Richardson. It's Jace Richardson. Fink, I want to come to you first on this because it'd be really easy to just compare him to his dad. He's been compared to his dad his entire career, but he's not his dad. Who would you comp him with?
So this was a tough one, and I had to go way back here, and I went with Delonte West, a southpaw, undersized, 2-guard, kind of 2-1 combo, because I do not believe Jace Richardson is a pure point guard. He is undersized, 6 feet and a half inches, according to the combine. And like Delonte West, he is a versatile and efficient scorer. He's got a definite pull-up game. Although he's got that slider build, he can get in and finish at the rim. And we saw his outside shooting make huge strides this year. So I think he's great in the secondary role. He is an undersized lefty 2-1 combo guard. Reminds me a lot of Delonte West.
And at 14, rounding out the lottery, it's the Spurs, who took Dylan Harper at number 2. It's Liam McNeely, and Fink, you actually had that same pick in your latest mock as well.
I did. I think this would be a great fit, and this is where I am going with the Corey Kispert comp. Think about a big wing who grew an inch at UConn, 6'8", a very good shooter. Everybody talks about the shooting numbers. How about this? He's 43% on stationary catch and shoot threes. Let's just stop talking about whether or not Liam McNeely can shoot the basketball. He's got terrific wing size, highly competitive, very smart. I think he's going to have a very similar trajectory to what we've seen Corey Kispert do. He's a solid pro plus for the Washington Wizards, and that's what I expect Liam McNeely to be wherever he ends up, and especially if he ends up in San Antonio.
Yeah, just to add to that, Fink, I think if you were just in a vacuum picking the type of prospect to add to the Spurs, I think Liam McNeely checks a ton of boxes. Someone who can space the floor. He plays the wing position. He's very competitive. He's going to compete on both ends of the floor. And this is a guy who plays a selfless brand of basketball. When you have the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama, potentially Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, this is a guy who McNeely has played with a number of stars at the college level, at the high school level. He's all about winning. I think at number 14, this would be a great fit for the San Antonio Spurs.
Spurs, the only team with multiple lottery picks, and the guys say potentially they could look at packaging those picks and trading down out of that second spot. But as of now, it is Liam McNeely and Dylan Harper, the haul to San Antonio at 2 and 14, respectively. We got our first centers off the board, Malawach and Queen, 9th and 12th to the Raptors and Bulls, respectively. But one player working his way up toward a potential lottery pick is Cedric Coward, who only played in 6 games his senior season, but has dazzled lately. Where does he go? That answer next. Going through Kyle Boone's very latest mock draft, which you can find at CBSSports.com. We've got Kyle, we've got Adam Finkelstein, I'm Chris Hassel, and you can't go very far in a mock without hitting the Oklahoma City Thunder, thanks to all the trades that they've made, and that's one of the reasons they're in the finals, and maybe one of the reasons they're not going to be able to keep all these guys and keep all these picks. Kyle, who do you have them taking with the 15th pick overall this year?
Yeah, I have them selecting Cedric Coward here from Washington State. He only played in 6 games last season. His injury season was cut short. This is a guy who has produced at a high level at the college level the last couple of years, though. Started his career at the Division III level, produced at Eastern Washington, and 6'5" with a 7'2" wingspan, career 40% 3-point shooter. Someone who I think checks a lot of boxes for OKC. They always prioritize guys who have skill, who could shoot the basketball, and who have length. Coward, of course, checks all those boxes here at number 15.
Thunder have another pick at 24 as well. The Magic hold the 16th pick. They've been in the postseason, the playoffs each of the last 2 years. Nick Clifford, an older prospect, Fink, 5 years of college basketball. How do you think he could help this team moving forward?
Well, the key variable for Neek is going to be the shooting, and we saw it make some really notable strides the last couple of years at Colorado State. And if those prove to be sustainable, then he's a very serviceable, think about a 3-and-D type archetype. But it's a different kind of challenge to when you have all the volume in the world and the total green light to see the ball go in then versus when you have very selective volume and you're playing a supporting role. So he's got to prove he's a spot-up shooter. But if he is, then he checks, as Kyle would say, all the other boxes because he's high character, he's long, he's athletic, he can really defend, he's a terrific rebounder and a very good passer. So it's just going to come down to the shooting with Nick Clifford. Some
teams looking to get just a little more help for some of their stars in Orlando and in Minneapolis, where Anthony Edwards is poised to become maybe the face of the NBA, but needs more help. Kyle, who do you have him taking at 17?
Yeah, I think for this Minnesota team, building around the edges through the draft is going to be important. Carter Bryant, I think, is an interesting name to keep an eye on here at number 17. It's a guy who, if you look at his counting stats, 6.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game. He didn't exactly wow you in the box scores, but is 6'7". He can play on the wing, can play defense at a high level, and shoots above 37% from 3. This is a guy who I think could have 3-and-D type potential very early in his career and potentially blossom into something more than that. And I think Minnesota needs to add, obviously, help around Anthony Edwards. I think particularly on the wing with size, scoring, and defense. That's what Carter Bryant can give this team.
Washington Wizards are up again after taking Jeremiah Fears at 6 in Kyle's draft. It's Danny Wolf, who, Adam, I know you have known for quite a while.
Danny Wolf, believe it or not, couldn't get any high majors to recruit him when he was a senior at Northfield Mount Hermon. He went to Yale, ended up winning an Ivy League championship there, transferred to Michigan. Now he's going to be a first-round draft pick. 6'11", tremendously skilled for his size, can really handle the basketball, can also really, really pass the basketball. Now, the shooting isn't quite at the same level, but if it comes, he's going to be a matchup nightmare. And I also would really like the theoretical fit here next to Alex Sarr because he is an elite defender who could help compensate for some of the physical deficiencies that Wolf is going to have relative to NBA level competition.
That's the second pick for the Wizards. How about the second of 4 picks for the Brooklyn Nets, Kyle?
Yeah, we selected Kasparas Jakučionis earlier in this draft for Brooklyn. We're going to come back and get him some help down low. It's Asa Newell from Georgia. This is a guy who's pushing 7 foot. He is a lob threat. He's a shot blocker, someone who provides energy, defense, competitiveness. Former 5-star recruit, was very productive in the SEC last season. And, I really like his floor spacing potential as well. There's some promise there, shot just below 30%. But, I think for someone like a Jakučionis, he needs someone who can be a lob threat, a lob target. Newell, I think, can absolutely be that.
And I think the great thing about Newell is he fits the modern game. So Kyle just said he's got faith in his shooting. If you do have faith in his shooting, there's a case to be made that he should be taken even higher. But even without it, he's got mobility. He's got some rim protection to him. He's got lateral quickness to allow him to defend ball screens in different ways. He plays with a high motor, and he's a bouncy finisher. So you can see the two-way versatility for someone who can play both the 4 and the 5. And then if the shooting pops, look out. It's a different prospect altogether.
All right, Nets have 2 more picks coming later on in the draft. But as we look back at picks 15 through 19, you see still no international players. That is wild. Usually we see several in the top 10, but none as we hit the 20 mark. But that's going to change very quickly. Picks 20 through 24 coming up next. Back here on CBS Sports HQ Spotlight, we're into the 20s of Kyle Boone's latest mock draft. I'm Chris Hassel, also joined by Adam Finkelstein. And Fink, we're going to go to 20 here, and it's the very first international player off the board in Kyle's mock. The Heat taking Nolan Traore. He's from France. A lot of guys coming from France. Is he the best in your mind?
Yeah, I think you can certainly make a case for it. And I will say this, too. I'm starting to wonder if Traore should be higher up people's boards. Remember, he started the season as a perceived top 5 pick. The concerns were about the shooting. We knew he had great speed and burst. He had playmaking instinct. He can pass off the dribble, but a little bit of a slighter frame and then questionable shooting. Well, we've seen some strides with the shooting this year. So I'm starting to wonder, hey, should we be talking about him more so the tail ends of the lottery? And how different is he from someone like Jeremiah Fears? So I think Nolan Traore is a player who we could see a very wide range for come draft night.
So many young guys in this draft, 18 years old. Cooper Flagg, he was supposed to be in high school. Another young one here at 21. And another from France, Kyle. Who are the Jazz taking in your mock?
Yeah, they're going to take Noah Singwe from France. And you mentioned a young guy. This is the second youngest prospect in this class, the youngest, of course, being Cooper Flagg. And he's from France. He's 6'10", combo forward, has shown some promise overseas, still very young, obviously, and a little bit of a raw prospect, but has shown some promise as a shooter, can play both ways at a high level. I think this is an interesting fit specifically for the Jazz, who, were in the conversation to win the #1 pick this year, didn't get it, but, clearly they're taking the longer term projection here. And I think this is a player who, if you're looking a couple years down the road, could be a nice pick, not someone who's necessarily going to be relied on to produce at the NBA level next year.
So add him to Trey Johnson, who Kyle mocked to the Jazz at 5. The Atlanta Hawks also with a couple of first-round picks. Jace Richardson, the son of Jason, at 13. Fink, what do you think about Thomas Sorber going there at 22?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Boone is right on the money here because Atlanta is one of the franchises that has been linked to Sorber. They've been trying to get this center position figured out for a long time. They still really don't have a long-term solution, but I think Sorber coming in, someone who drastically outproduced expectations this year at Georgetown and even late into the draft process where a lot of people expected him to go back to college, but he's skilled. He is a late bloomer who got himself into the best shape of his life this year at Georgetown. He's got inside-out ability and still a big natural frame that's going to cause mismatches when you add that to his processing ability and the fact that he can play in the post, he can play off short rolls and operate from different spots on the floor.
Yeah, and as Fink mentioned here, Atlanta is particularly interested with Sorber. I would not be surprised to see him go in the lottery with Atlanta's first pick. I think this would be great value for the Atlanta Hawks, and obviously Sorber a surprise one and done last season, produced at a really high level at Georgetown. I think his range starts somewhere late in the lottery. This would be on the lower end of where I would actually expect him to go on draft night. So, if the Hawks could get him at number 22, I think this would be a steal for them and their franchise as they look to really solidify their center spot.
A reminder that the NBA does things differently than the NFL. The Indiana Pacers are in the finals. They still have the 23rd pick because of record in the NBA. It's Joan Beringer, Kyle, the pick here. And I just heard Miles Turner the other day, I think it was right after they clinched the Eastern Conference Championship, saying how he's kind of been year to year for a while, and he's an unrestricted free agent again.
Yeah, it feels like Turner's kind of been in the trade discussions for the last couple of years. He's still on this team, but I think there's some questions about this team's front court moving forward. I think Beringer could be potential insurance and someone who I think could be a really useful piece down the road. He's 6'11", someone who can play with a lot of energy at 7'4" with a wingspan, shooting above 30% overseas right now. A high-level finisher, someone who I think could be a lob threat, someone who can block shots at the NBA level, just with his wingspan and the ability to impact things on defense. For a Pacers team that's going to the NBA Finals, I think this could be a real value here.
And playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the 24th overall pick in the first round. Think the pick from Kyle is Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, I don't know where Oklahoma City has any need on their roster. They should just give him a second team at this point. But I do agree that Kalkbrenner is a late first round caliber talent. Now, he is just a monster physically. He's going to be one of the 6 biggest players in the NBA next season as a rookie. We know he's a drop coverage monster defensively, the 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He's got more versatility than advertised. If you really dig into the tape on that end, you can go watch the Marquette game and the way he switched on to Cam Jones even. Offensively, we've seen him start to extend his shooting range outside. We know he played in an advanced playbook all throughout college, so I think he's going to be a serviceable backup big man in the NBA for a long time.
Yeah, and I think Kalkbrenner, too, Fink, to add to your point, is someone who, I think has unfairly been lumped into productive college bigs whose game may not fit at the NBA level. I would absolutely push back on that. He has great size and instincts on the defensive end, I think, is where it stands out for him. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East, playing with Creighton. This is someone who even last year generated quite a bit of buzz in the NBA draft community before coming back to college. He can shoot from 3-point range. He has a really smooth shot. I think the mechanics are repeatable. So, obviously OKC, their roster's pretty stacked right now. There's not a lot of holes, but I think Kalkbrenner could be someone who, depending on what OKC does with Chet Holmgren, with Isaiah Hartenstein, they could be in the market for someone who is going to be a backup center in the future.
And that's 3 straight centers off the board here in Kyle Boone's mock. Also 3 French players in the last 5 picks as we hit the mid-20s. The Magic are up next, and the Nets still have a couple of more picks to go. That's next. Finishing up Kyle Boone's latest NBA mock draft with the first round 3 weeks from Wednesday. This is HQ Spotlight. I'm Chris Hassel. Adam Finkelstein is with us as well. Kyle, your number 25 pick makes a lot of sense. Walter Clayton Jr. grew up in Central Florida, just led Florida to a national title. Why not keep him right there with Orlando?
Keep him home. That's right. The Orlando Magic have had a firsthand experience of watching the Walter Clayton Jr. show this past season. He led Florida to a national championship. And I think, to your point, I think Magic need to really rebuild their offense around Paolo Banchero. They have already selected in this mock draft Nick Clifford, who I think can do that. Walter Clayton Jr. can absolutely do that. He is a shooting weapon who can make shots with a ton of versatility. I think he could play both on and off the ball. Someone who I think could realistically go inside the top 20 on draft night. I think at number 25, this would be great value here for the Orlando Magic.
And then it's the Brooklyn Nets who have back-to-back picks here at 26 and 27. At 26, Kyle has them going with Ben Surratt. Fink, what do you think about that pick?
Well, he's a big southpaw, and I think he's got a high upside because he's got terrific positional size, and there may not be a better live dribble passer in this draft. So He's got a chance to come in. He would benefit from having an immediate opportunity to get on the floor and play minutes. This is obviously not a Brooklyn team that's going to be expected to contend for the playoffs right away. And his ability to create mismatches, get in the lane, and create offense for himself and others is something that a lot of teams are very enthusiastic about heading into draft night. I think this guy's got a high upside, and he may be another international prospect that we should be talking a little bit more about.
Speaking of another international prospect, Kyle has him going international once again at 27 with a guy who really didn't see the floor that much for his European national team.
That's right, and he's actually started to come on strong here a little bit of late for Real Madrid. That team is very, very talented, very deep. And Hugo Gonzalez, just 19 years old, he's had some flashes here over the last couple of years and really made strides of late in the season. You know, he has explosive athleticism, high motor, love the frame, love the versatility. This is a guy who, you know, I think if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I have 4 draft picks. Gonzalez is one who maybe is a stash, someone who can develop over the next couple of years, and I think he has a real chance to become something, a starting caliber forward at the next level.
Well, the Nets need something, a lot of something. They're going to get 4 first-round picks. Let's take a look at the haul that we have in this latest mock from Kyle. And it's actually 3 European players, because even though Jakučiūnas went to Illinois, he is Lithuanian. What do you think of the 4 players, including the kid from Atlanta, Asa Newell?
Well, it makes sense because you've got assets spread across their lineup, but this would be a bet on player development, and that is actually what the Nets were known for. If we remember when Sean Marks took over this front office, it was considered a long rebuild because they didn't have a whole lot of draft capital. The way they accelerated that process and ultimately had the opportunity to trade and acquire guys like Harden, KD, and Kyrie is because they developed from within. If they can do that again with this group, they have some very high long-term assets, and the hope is that they can replicate that process and again accelerate expectations, getting their young players better in a hurry.
Yeah, Fink, and I think the theme here with the Brooklyn Nets and the 4 picks specifically that we have mocked is, you know, thinking long term. This is not a 1-year turnaround for the Brooklyn Nets. It's going to take some time. They're going to need to hit on some of these draft picks. They're going to have to win on the margins in free agency. I don't think any of these guys are necessarily going to be impact players in the NBA right away. All of them are still very, very young, but all of these guys, in a couple of years, we could look up, and this could be the draft class that helps change the trajectory of this franchise. That's what I'm hoping for if I'm the Brooklyn Nets making these 4 picks.
And we have yet another international player coming in at number 28 to a Boston Celtics team that it's kind of in limbo right now, with potentially not having Jason Tatum all of next season and contracts coming up. Noah Penda. It's tough to get somebody in the end of the first round that you think can actually get out there right away, especially for a team as good as Boston will be. Is there any chance he does anything for them this upcoming season?
Well, I think so, because he could be a connector. He's viewed as a very smart 2-way player, good team defender, high IQ offensive player. And Chris, as you alluded to, this is a Celtics team that is expected to have to make some major changes. We already know Jason Tatum is going to be out for the better part, if not the entire season. Other players are going to have to be moved because of the cap ramifications. So if you find that rotation to have less depth than they have become accustomed to in the last few years, you've got to find somebody in this spot who can come in and play minutes. The hope is that Penda can be a solid enough contributor on both ends of the floor to do that. But again, the shooting will be a critical variable, especially in Joe Mazzulla's system.
This next player is not technically a French draft pick because he played at Stanford, but again, another player of French descent who was born there at number 29. Who are the Suns taking, Kyle?
Yeah, they're going to select Maxime Reynaud from Stanford, and this is a really interesting prospect. He's 7 foot tall, shot at 34.5% from three-point range last season. I think he was one of the best players in the ACC last season, and his skill set is very interesting in that he's a floor spacer. He could shoot it at a really high level, but his skills at 7 foot I think are very unique. Can put the ball on the floor, can attack closeouts, can finish around the rim at a really high level. So there's a lot to like with Reynaud. I think he's drawn quite a bit of attention during the pre-draft process. This is a guy who could end up going higher than maybe people expect on draft night.
In between 20 and 30, 8 of these players were born in Europe, finishing up with the Clippers at 30, taking Yannick Conan Niederhauser. Fink, what do we know about him?
Well, we know that he was not a name that many people were talking about before we went to the Combine a few weeks ago, and he turned heads there because he measured in at 6'11", barefoot. He's long, he's got a terrific standing reach, and he's a very good athlete for his size. Now, if you're a fan of college basketball and you're watching this, you say, who? From Penn State? They weren't very good, and I never heard of this guy. Well, the lesson here is that he played a role at Penn State that is translatable to the NBA. You guys have all heard me talk about the rim running, the shot blocking, the lob threat. Well, Niederhauser checks all those boxes. He's also a very good rebounder. He's got NBA level size. He's got NBA level athleticism. And whether or not he was ever a star in college basketball is irrelevant to his ability to step in and play a very confined role at the NBA level.
Born in Switzerland, played some pro basketball in Germany before coming over here to play college in the States. 30th overall to the Clippers in the very latest first-round mock from Kyle Boone. That's how we finished things up. Didn't have a single international player in the top 19, and then they come fast and furious from 20 through 30. We will have the reactions, the takeaways from this very latest mock on the other side here on HQ Spotlight. Chris Hassel back with you on HQ Spotlight. We have Kyle Boone and Adam Finkelstein. We just finished up Kyle's latest NBA mock draft. If you missed it, check it out, CBSSports.com. Fink, what are the takeaways from this? We had 13 of the 14 lottery picks, all one-and-done freshmen, and no international players until pick 20.
Pick at that a little bit, no pun intended. First of all, let's start with the top 5. If this goes as Boone projects, and many people project, those 5 players would be the top 5 high school prospects from a year ago, ending up becoming the top 5 picks in the NBA draft. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson. That in and of itself would be historic. Now, the 13 lottery picks, one-and-done lottery picks, why is that? Well, that's rooted in NIL because you have guys like Kamen Malawach, you have guys like Yegor Demin and Kaspris Yakachonis who probably wouldn't have played college basketball last year if not for the money available through NIL. So I actually think this is a trend that's going to continue. The money's only getting bigger in college basketball. That is drawing the best players from around the world. And so you are going to see the one and done with international players first playing college basketball and then going to the NBA draft as long as this NIL model continues in college basketball.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not, these aren't American, they're not all American one and done college players, some coming over from Europe to play one season in college, get some money, and then go to the NBA. Filling out this mock with 3 weeks to go, Kyle, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, a couple of things here. One thing that stood out to me in particular, the Spurs keeping their powder dry, not going all in on a Giannis or someone in the trade market. The Spurs brass has publicly said time and again they do not plan to shop the number 2 pick. What if we just believe them? I think the haul that they could get through this draft to continue building around Victor Wembanyama would make a lot of sense. Dylan Harper's a special player at number 2. I think he's a tremendous talent, someone who, maybe the talent overlaps with a De'Aaron Fox and a Stephon Castle. You figure out how that works down the road. Dylan Harper and Liam McNeely, I think, could help change the trajectory of that Spurs team. Another one that I liked in this mock draft, and whoever did this mock draft, great job by you, the Atlanta Hawks, getting Jace Richardson and also Thomas Sorber. These are 2 top guys who are top 15 on my prospect big board. I thought this was really good value. Atlanta needs to add some backcourt depth, some firepower on its offense. They need to add some size and some, versatility to their center spot. They can do a little bit of both with those picks. So, I think Atlanta could come away from this draft feeling really good about the potential haul that they could get as well.
We only have about 20 seconds. Fink, Nico Harrison traded Luka away. Nobody thought that was possible. Is there any chance he's lying and he's going to trade that number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg?
I can't imagine that. The last one was debatable malpractice. This undeniable malpractice. I can't imagine that's a scenario they're entertaining.
And they've said they are not going to trade that first pick. It is going to be Cooper flagged. You can't even place a bet on it because it is that. As Kyle, as you wrote in your mock draft, it is not in pencil. It is in ink. If you missed any of Kyle's mock, check it out at CBSSports.com. For Kyle Boone and Adam Finkelstein, I'm Chris Hassel. Thanks for watching HQ Spotlight.